Welcome to Looking into Cultures. Today we have my friends and former colleagues from the American University of Afghanistan as our guests by Zoom from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, James Hart and Kunduz Maksutova. Kunduz, I want to ask you about the fact that you were a Communist Party member. And I want to know about what was the process of becoming a Communist Party member? How did you become one?
All the power belongs to proletariat. So the Communist Party was taking members from farmers and from workers. So that's why but like teachers were supposed to, like, they're intelligence, a group of intelligent people. So they're willing to take from those. So therefore, it was a big kind of competition to become the member, and especially if I was only a student of the third course of the university of the Faculty of World Languages, but and the competition was really big because like they were taking sometimes if they give some quota for the department. So like if we have like, I don't know, more than 5,000 students of the like our faculty of department, so it's one person per year if they will give quota from above.
How old were you when you became a member of the Communist Party?
19.
Wow.
I mean, they give 1 year per like probation. You have to really prove yourself, and then so they will accept only through, you have to go to the city council of whatever Communist Party of the city of the like town where I lived, and then there they also vote. First you accepted by the university, and then we go all the levels, and then only after 1 year, if you really prove yourself that you are worth of it, so they will they will vote and yeah.
Okay, Frank.
The advantages and the disadvantages of being in the Communist Party. What are the advantages and the disadvantages?
Yeah, definitely. Why I wanted, and probably kind of I can consider my father, my dad, who was teaching at the university, and he was the member of the Communist Party. So the advantage is that when you graduate to the university, so definitely that there's the insurance that you will become, you will be working some high level of the government.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the biggest advantage. So that's how I thought that I will go to like high level of administration of the city, the government, and deputy, like that.
And who was excluded?
Yeah, was anybody excluded?
Definitely, it was so easy, like, you know, to control people. Oh, you're the member of the Communist Party, you have to behave properly. And if they're tiny something, and definitely the people like to carry whatever your misbehavior to some other people to the high level, so definitely you will be kicked out so easily. So just raise your hands, they vote, you're done. And not only done, they will kick out from the like your work or your study. They will just kick out from the membership of the even Komsomol, and so you will just become like farmer or worker at the end, or almost like homeless and jobless.
Wow.
Can
I clarify one thing? Did you say your father was a member of the Communist Party?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Were there any disadvantages, Kunduz?
Here you go.
Yeah, disadvantage. Did you feel yourself like a butterfly under the microscope?
Oh,
like including in them like religious stuff.
it sounds like there was you could not express yourself freely, and certainly not a dissident opinion, right?
Kind of, yes, but like when I got into the Communist Party, it was I don't remember, either 86 I got or 87, and then it was exactly the time when you know, coming to the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Oh,
Glasnost, prozrachность, like all these kind of terms, or you can speak openly what you think about, everything. And I was exactly at the time, and I was kind of like really enjoyed, criticizing the corrupt faculty, trying to do it.
good.
I don't know, maybe after it will be just kind of more difficult, but I was just lucky to get into time of history.
Yeah, it must have been an incredibly exciting time. Okay, Frank?
Would you talk about your intercultural experiences working in Pakistan, the USA, Afghanistan, and Iraq?
They're frozen again.
Hmm.
Well, while they're frozen, I'll just say that Kunduz got an Aga Khan scholarship to study in Pakistan.
Mhm.
And she also studied at the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Oh, wow, okay.
And did some kind of a course at SIT School for International Training in Vermont. And I wish she was telling us about it instead of me. I want to ask you about racism. In the Soviet Union, Soviet communism always said that they were a very equal society, but there was racial discrimination. How do you explain that? Because you experienced racial discrimination, correct?
Even teachers in school, when I was in primary school, they could openly in front of other kids call children like Uzbeks or Kyrgyz people. And were not so many in that Russian school, not so many. It's like very few. Still, they could call us nationals, nationale, which means like either way, like national, they mean what they were, dark or black, or I don't know. Something like, I don't know what they were calling us like that. Even the teachers, I don't know. It was sad. It wasn't never addressed to me personally, but just sitting in the class when I can see how they can just treat the one who's dark separately from the one who's white. I was scared, and I didn't want to go to the school. I was crying, but my dad was coming very often to school, very often, because it's kind of a very prestigious school. We studied English from the 2nd grade. And I could hardly speak even Russian. And now from the 2nd grade, I started teaching or learning English. But my dad was coming very often. And I could see how the older Russian teachers, later some Kyrgyz joined, they were really behaving differently in front of my father. I could do anything. I can take the notebook and throw it, and I could scream. And they would just only could say, just get out. And when my father comes, suddenly they were okay, because I could see maybe he was the member of the Communist Party. And he was teaching those teachers in the same school, coming like every, I think, Wednesday, teaching whatever communist ideas. So later I came to know, but before I couldn't understand. They never treated me personally bad, but I could see how it comes like that way. But definitely when I studied, I had only one B, according to what the grade, because my accent, I couldn't speak pure Russian, and that was the only reason that they could put me down.
Frank?
Do you appreciate, what are your criticisms of American culture, and what do you appreciate about the Kyrgyz culture?
What I appreciate in American culture.
Yes, in American and in Kyrgyz. What do you appreciate most in those two cultures?
In those two cultures, I think when I went to the United States, I didn't feel so like kind of outside. I couldn't feel. I could feel that we have kind of the same. The Kyrgyz people, they like to speak like straight to the face. That's like culturally. So even being a woman, so the women in the history of Kyrgyzstan of Kyrgyz people, they could be decision makers. They were strong. I mean, historically they were strong. I could see even from my grandmother, she was educated. She was like not educated in institution, but she was like, she could read, she could recite poems. People were coming and asking some advices from my grandmother, and I was like, wow, and I could see how she's really very powerful. Maybe it's like not like general, but
So you felt there was quite a similarity in that
yeah,
regard?
very similar. Yes,
Is an American culture?
yeah, the women are respected, the girls are respected. And again, maybe again, compared to when I went to Pakistan, I could see like from all these stories how it's so hard for women to fight for their rights, to really to be somebody, and just to get education, just simply in school education level. But in America, I could see they went all these levels, like women, they're fighting for their rights from the historical. I was like, wow, we never studied American history. And then I started like reading, and I was like so amazed how and admire those like very strong like women, and especially maybe I studied at the University of Massachusetts. Probably, it's like maybe that area is really very democratic, really. And then the war in Iraq started 2003, and I joined 2002. So again, like you could see how women, they're so strong. They were educated, and they could fight. So that was like really what I feel that the women could do or have to do in their lives, and not to sit and wait when somebody will do something good.
Yeah.
So I never felt bad in the States.
Okay. And Jane, I ask you, what do you appreciate most about American culture and appreciate least about American culture?
I know you, Cynthia, you read a lot of literature, and you've given me a lot of good suggestions when you were here visiting this summer, which I haven't been able to get to, so I'm sorry.
It's
But
okay. One day.
one person who I quote in this situation, which is strange because I actually greatly dislike him, although he's from a state next to my home state, Montana, Idaho. He's not from Idaho. I'm talking about Ernest Hemingway, who seems to be popping up all over the place recently. I do not like his writings, but his whole quote about I read something about him saying, when I write something, I write it how I want it, and then I go through and throw away all the adjectives and adverbs. Well, for me, I would do the opposite. But one quote, I think it was in the one, A Movable Feast. I mean, I've only read like 3, where he's in Paris, running around Paris or something like that.
Yes.
Like, the phrase that comes to mind, too American to lie. I like that. That's about as I like the concept that Americans are not lying people. I don't think it's always true, but
Well, that's a George. He cut down the cherry tree, according to
I
that
cannot tell a
story.
lie.
And he admitted it and said, I cannot tell a lie. Well, what about what you like least?
I mean, something about the constant money grab and the constant rushing for money. Now, this is very much at the forefront of our minds because Kunduz and I, well, lately we don't have regular TV. We have TV by choice, right? Let's just put it that way without getting anyone into any legal problems. And we've been watching the American TV show Succession. We're actually, this Succession about this hardcore, aggressive, super capital series. Brian Cox is the main guy. He's great. And this super hardcore capitalist, he's basically Rupert Murdoch, but he's an American, invented, and they're just aggressively taking over everything, this stuff. And it's like the one thing, I mean, I don't like about American culture, and this is a bit of a caricature, but it's there, is this aggressive capitalism. Like for here in Kyrgyzstan, one thing I like is so we have these events called toys, like
Yes.
a toy, but it means feast.
Yes.
And you have to go to toys. It's a social obligation. It's a cultural obligation. It's a family obligation, and in some cases a political obligation. But I'm not really kind of involved in that world. But we go to these toys because it's an obligation. And as a good friend of mine who's a Kyrgyz guy, he said, friendship is also an obligation, which kind of can be looked at in 2 ways, as a negative thing or as a positive thing. But one thing I like about Kyrgyzstan is that social life, whether it's family life or even your friends, that comes first. It really does come first. And I bet you that there are American families that are like that. I just don't know very many of them.
Well, I don't know. I just the collectivism that was an ideal of the Soviet, system you know, I still think that, you know, that some collectivist thinking is very good for humanity, and that, you know, stark individualism to me is, you know, like there's a lot of lonely people in America, you know, and so I think that what these toys or feasts, they sound like wonderful, you know, ways to keep, you know, to keep oiling the wheels of social life.
I mean, but the problem is with these toys, and Kunduz and I agree with it, is that, you know, they last too long. They never start on time. They last too long. There's tons of food. And it took me years to understand this. American eating models, you know, think anthropologically, clean plate club, we called it as kids. When you have the plate in front of you, you eat until it's all gone,
Yes.
right? But in Kyrgyzstan, it took me 7 years to understand if you eat until it's all gone, people will just put more on the plate. And so the thing is, when we come back from a toy way too late at night, bellies completely full, like way too much food, dancing. I'm not that much of a dancer. The social things, like they're taxing. We have relatives and friends, Kunduz's sisters, who go. I mean, my good friend, he goes probably to 4 toys a week. I'm like, man, I don't know if I can handle one every season. Is a little too much for me. But I mean, but the social obligation, the collective, as you call it, collective.
Do we want to compare and contrast the American values and social behaviors with the
Kyrgyz.
Compare and contrast social and cultural values of Kyrgyzstan and the United
And
States.
social behaviors. Anything that stands out.
You know, one thing I say, and then just let me start with there. Say, like, one thing I found disruptive to me in the States, and when I went back to the States to start a PhD program, which I abandoned after 1 semester, it really came out to me. It was the last time I really lived in the States, and that was in 2010. And that was only for 1 semester. Was you will be in a social situation with somebody, fellow graduate students, and you'll pass them on the street, and more often than not, they won't even acknowledge your presence. You don't do
It's
that.
that anonymity. The individualism has a certain anonymity.
Yeah, but you don't do that here, and you can't do that here. If I'm walking down the street and I see one person I know, and I wouldn't even see friend, but maybe it is a friend, but I see one person and he's talking to, you know, a group of guys, I go through and greet each and every one of them, and I like that to recognize that they're human beings.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, yeah.
Frank?
Do you have any intention of returning to the United States permanently, or your country of origin?
No.
No. How much would you want to at all?
You know, when people ask me about that, it's like, what do you miss about the States? And I always say 3 things. I miss the mountains of Montana, and heck, they're going to be there. I miss my family and friends, and they have a standing invitation, and I keep telling them, and nobody takes them up on it except for Cynthia. But then again, you know, the funny thing is I imagine that you would have come through here without my invitation. You know what I'm saying? But I have, you know, nobody ever comes. Now, I do have some former friends that were Peace Corps volunteers that do come back once in a while for various reasons, but for their own reasons. Right?
What's number 3?
Mexican food. And every once in a while, there'll be a place that opens here, and it's almost universally called Burrito. That's the name of the place. And they have burritos, and I go there once or twice. I'm not crazy about eating out. I just am not. But, you know, I'll go there once or twice to support it. It's not wonderful, but, you know, and then it closes.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, I like it here. I got what I want here. Everything I need is here. And I'm not really put out by the lack of anything here. You know what I mean?
I know that you both would be interested in working abroad again, right?
Yeah.
Did you
ever
go to that university in Armenia?
I didn't apply. No. You know, we've got so much stuff here. Again, this thing is, it's come up now, and it's different because, you know, you saw Cizim, our granddaughter, and it's like one thing is compared to when we were working together in Afghanistan, you know, Kunduz and I were a lot more free. Right. We're still free. We can do that, but man, it does. I think about not seeing Cizim for a year, and that would get to me.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what we'll say. Tell your you know, I mean, for your televised audience, you know, come to Kyrgyzstan as a tourist. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's mountains and there is sea. It's not really sea. There's a big lake here. There's horseback riding. There's interesting culture. There's interesting food. It's a bit tough to be here and be a vegetarian because food equals meat here. But if you come in the summer, especially from the south, the fruits and vegetables are astounding. They're really good.
Well, I think Kyrgyzstan is a fabulous place to visit. And you know, I was there for like about a month. And I went mountain climbing and horseback riding and visited with you. The Kyrgyz people were traditionally nomadic because of mountainous terrain that made herding far easier than cultivation. In winter, they stayed in the valleys, and in summer moved their animals to alpine pastures. In the Soviet period, herders were forced onto collective livestock farms, and traditional ways of life were suppressed. Now, every summer, semi-nomadic herders, who in winter live in houses in the villages, move to the alpine lake of Son Kul and erect their yurts. All summer the animals graze there, but in early September most of the lush green grass is gone, and the horses have to be hobbled so that they won't run down to the valley on their own. Families break camp and return with their herds to their villages before the harsh winter sets in. Horses figure large in Kyrgyz culture. In equestrian games and festivals, hunting with eagles, folklore and epics, fine art, and the consumption of horse products such as fermented mare's milk. These romantic horse paintings can be seen in art fairs on the streets of the capital, Bishkek. In late afternoon, my hosts went to milk their cows. They took the calves away from their mothers and penned them up in a small corral so they could fill their buckets without interference. Once they'd finished, they released the calves to return to their mothers and carried their buckets back to the yurt. Each night, a dung fire was lit in the small stove in my yurt. I had helped to gather the dry dung, which only lifted away from the ground easily if it was dried all the way through, light as a meringue. The interior of the yurt was toasty warm when I went to bed, but by the middle of the night, the fire had died. Before darkness fell, I saw a family in the distance taking down their yurt, the red ribs bare of their thick felt coverings. Staying with nomads in yurts allowed me to witness their daily tasks and enjoy their company. One of my hosts even agreed to sing me a song.
Aşıp taşıp alato civekcal kulun toylay cilelerde la 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 la.
By the way, I went to many bazaars in Uzbekistan, and I liked Osh Bazaar in Bishkek better than any of the other ones. It has so much life. You know, like you go to a supermarket in the US, oh my God, totally linear. Nobody speaks to anybody. Well, they do a little bit, but I mean, there's no, hustle, bustle, vibrancy. And, I'm not happy to be back here.
Cynthia, Kunduz has some bad news about Osh Bazaar for you.
Yeah, just imagine that Osh Bazaar. So the government decided to move it somewhere out of the city, somewhere very far.
Oh, no.
So when everybody just is against, like they were against even the new flag, but
So it's gone?
Not yet.
not yet.
It's a plan. The
But they're
city plan
planning.
is to move it outside, to move the Avtovokzal, the bus stations, to move them out of the city because the city is growing. They even just expanded the city by a huge amount. But the one thing is, you remember the cards that you gave me, the buses and stuff, but it's the city is growing and it has to grow. And I don't think anybody in this city will say that 100% of the changes are good. Moving the bazaar outside, the other bazaars that you didn't go to in Bishkek, Medina, and all those, they're supposed to go outside of the city.
That makes no sense at all. People don't want to travel far to go to the bazaar.
They won't.
Well, anyway, we've only got a few minutes left, so I just want to take that time to thank you immensely for getting up and coordinating with us with our 11-hour difference. It's great seeing you. I miss you, and I want to come
Miss you too,
see
Cynthia.
you in person because it's too frustrating to see you inside of a screen.
Come back, Cynthia. Frank, come.
Thank you. Sounds lovely. It really does.
It's a fun place. It's a unique place.
Well, thanks so much, and we're going to go to bed
Thank you.
soon. I really appreciate it. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
guys. It was fun.
Bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take
Okay,
care.
I don't know
Thank
how
you.
this- Oh, and thank you for watching Looking into Cultures, and good night.
Ciao.